Domestic Violence Awareness and Prevention Month, and the Purple Door, formerly known as the Women's Shelter, would like everyone to get more active in recognizing the signs of domestic violence. That's why they're launching a new initiative called Lose the Ribbon. Organizers at the shelter hope the initiative shatters the stereotypes that lead to dysfunctional relationships and, even more important, get men more involved in preventing domestic violence and sexual assault.
Domestic violence, sexual assault is not a woman's issue and an issue that women need to fix. We're trying to get men to get more involved, to step up.
It's wonderful to see more men realize that they could use their voice and their platform to help end violence in our community.
The Purple Door is also celebrating the launch of a relationship podcast called Unapologetic. It launches on October 11th. That will address how to keep relationships healthy and prevent conflict.